Hi, I'm Seok, Director of Student Affairs, Nanyang Technological University.
Hello, I'm Adeline, Vice Dean of Students at the National University of Singapore.
Well, the scope of student affairs is so wide-ranging that one can easily say that anything that falls outside the classroom is the business of the Student Affairs Office. Personally, I feel that there are three key factors that have accelerated the transformation of student affairs, especially in recent years. First, the changes in student profile. Two, changes in societal expectations. And the third one is emerging trends in student well-being, particularly mental health. In NTU, the work of student affairs comes under the broad umbrella of NTU Student Life, which is an integral part of NTU education. And we have identified three key priorities in view of the changing landscape: student well-being, student development in the form of co-curricular learning, and campus experience, which includes residential life.
Well, I think certainly student development is an integral part of student life in the universities. And for each undergraduate that comes into NUS, the Office of Student Affairs really endeavours and aspires to help each student grow and reach their full potential. So developing student leaders is one aspect. This is one area that we have also had some new initiatives in recent years. The DYOM is a Design Your Own Module initiative. This is actually an NUS-wide initiative. But in the Office of Student Affairs, right, we have a module that is targeted primarily at student leaders in the hostels. So the JCRC members and so on, who are peer leaders in their institutions. So the module equips them through experiential learning to practice four principles, PERK or PERK. And that stands for purpose, engagement, resilience, and kindness. So this is one way in which we try to equip them during their time in NUS, right, and in their leadership roles with the skills that will stand them in good stead when they graduate from NUS. Well, in relation to what Seok has said about mental health in NTU, I think in the same way, NUS also recognizes that mental health is integral to the student experience. Right? And therefore, this is one of the focus areas in the Office of Student Affairs. And I think in NUS, we are moving from a model of providing resources to students when they are in distress, although that is still very important, right? To also including positive well-being and emphasizing this from day one. So when students come in, right, as freshmen, one of the first things that they encounter during the freshman orientation camp is a video that emphasizes to them the importance of self-care, right, and of being aware of the resources that they can turn to on campus, right? Peer support, for example, support from their faculties, and all along the spectrum, right, of mental well-being. Well, the reality in student affairs in Singapore and in undergraduate life in general in 2020, of course, is that when students came in at the start of the semester, they realized that the campus that they probably had in their minds is very different from what they actually stepped into. Right? We were in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and there were many changes, right? Many necessary changes in order to keep people safe. So I think it was a period of adjustment this academic year, right? Both from the students' point of view as well as the administration, to see how we could maintain as much as possible of the core and the spirit of student life, right? Without the usual face-to-face encounters because of all the safe management measures that had to be in place. And I think from the students' point of view, we really appreciated the way that they came alongside, they partnered with us in order to find solutions, in order to work through the challenges, the difficulty, and oftentimes I think the disappointment, right, of not being able to interact, right, to the extent that they were looking forward to with their peers. So that is still a continuing challenge, right, as we try to navigate this landscape. And on the part of the Office of Student Affairs and all those involved in student life, right, is to try to find the balance between keeping people as safe as possible, right, and also taking into account the needs. And this is both the need for activity, the need for learning and growth, and the need for support, psychological and emotional support during a time when people feel isolated from one another. So this is where quite often, right, the Office of Student Affairs had to kind of think beyond the usual kinds of initiatives. So as you can imagine, right, in the midst of COVID-19, the orientation programs had to take on an entirely different tone and tenor compared to previous years. So student leaders had to be very creative in coming up with programs that were engaging online and serve the same purpose of inspiring freshmen, of welcoming them, of inducting them to university life.
Adeline, I strongly concur with what you just shared, especially the bit about student well-being. In NTU, we feel so strongly about student well-being because it is a precondition to student development. In fact, if the well-being is not taken care of, students, we feel that it will be difficult for them to succeed or excel in academic pursuits in the university. And we feel this so strongly and important that since August, which is just about 2 months ago, a dedicated office called Office of Student Wellbeing was set up from a spin-off from the Student Affairs Office, which was the University Wellbeing Center, so that we have dedicated resources, more resources, and also we want to go upstream to do more outreach and educational programs to give better support in terms of student care to the NTU community. Earlier on, I mentioned student development as one of the 3 key priorities that NTU Student Life is focusing on. Just like NUS, the buzzing campus life in NTU can only be sustained by the passion of our students from the copious amount of time spent on CCA as well as hall activities. And along the way, they pick up leadership skills, soft skills, directly or indirectly through learning by doing. So we hope to enhance and value add to our students' development in a more deliberate and systematic manner by rolling out a university-wide student leadership development program. And the impetus of the program is to strengthen leadership of our student organizations, to provide opportunities to maximize their leadership potential, to build an ecosystem with the leadership DNA in NTU graduates. And most important of all, hopefully the graduates that we produce will demonstrate the 5 C attributes of an NTU education. The program comprises 3 levels, and at the entry foundational level is what we call the foundational leadership. It is open to all students, and it comprises primarily online module that the students can take anytime, anywhere. And what this module hopes to do is to create self-awareness among the students and to introduce basic concepts of leadership and followership. And we hope that at the end of the module, sufficient students will be motivated enough to aspire to lead in a particular context. And then they move on to level 2, which is what we call the emergent leadership. And this is open to all student leaders from student organizations or interest groups or community groups. And this module comprises a mixture of online, virtual and face-to-face activities. And we hope that the leaders in action, the student leaders themselves, can immediately apply what they have learned from the module so that they become more effective leaders. And then lastly, at level 3 is the impactful leadership. This is open to high potential leaders who usually are students who would already have demonstrated some leadership potential and qualities, and they were nominated by their faculty, club advisors or mentors. Enrollment is by nomination, selection, and finally acceptance. Apart from the usual mix of seminars, fireside chat with industry honchos, a unique component of this impactful leadership is a one-to-one personal coaching that the participants will enjoy from professional certified coaches and NTU engage for them. And from past feedback, the students really highly value this, as it feels that it has not only honed their leadership competencies but have helped them to grow as individuals. Personally, I'm very excited by this student leadership development program because it helps to unleash the potential of our students, not just the student leaders but also the general student body.
So perhaps I'll talk about this in 3 points, right? And the first one is something that speaks very much to what Siok-san said earlier about students having passion, right? And that passion driving student life in the universities. Remember that at the start of our term in OSA, the Dean of Students kind of surprised us with one maxim, right, that goes, well, everybody says we should do more with less, right, in this age of efficiency. But in student life, let's try to do less with more. And what she meant was do less with more mastery, right? Do less for students and more with students, right? Because it is the students' passion that we actually want to leverage on, right, in creating the kind of student life that they want. So the second point is that there are many opportunities that arise out of the challenges of the more complex environment that we find ourselves in, right? And the greater range in terms of needs in university campuses. So there is a need then for the Student Life Office to work across portfolios and across the traditional boundaries that as we define our roles. Right? So one example is sort of harnessing the skills, the experience and the knowledge of many different members of the student office community, right, in addressing issues like diversity and inclusion, including things like disability support, right, which is becoming more and more prominent in campuses today. And the third point, finally, is that as an academic institution, we want to see all of these challenges as opportunities for learning, for helping our students to look beyond the surface of the issues, right, into the deeper meaning and significance in each of them. And I think one example that we saw this year in the COVID pandemic was how daily updates from the Dean of Students, right, to help students understand the landscape, right, what COVID meant to the university, to student life, and how together as a community we could overcome this, right, because of the deeper, more intrinsic values that bring us together as a university community. I think some of those things sparked deeper thinking on the part of students. I think that's one area in which the Office of Student Affairs can contribute to student life in an academic institution of higher learning like NUS and like NTU.
Well, this is the APSSA AGM. We really look forward to hearing what our counterparts from other countries are doing and coping with these unusual times. And Adeline, we should also find time to exchange notes, to meet and exchange notes, because there's so much that we can learn from each other.
Yes, definitely. So we look forward to the other presentations today as well. And thank you very much for your attention.